Hey everybody, it's Scott Steen with the winnersandwinners.com coming to you with the Friday TGIF edition of Today in Sports Betting. And man, this is going to be a fun show. We're going to do a little horse racing today. Love to talk about the ponies. And who better to talk about the ponies with than, of course, my partner. Every day, he's a guy that made the pilgrimage to Belmont at least once a year. So, he's an expert in horse racing. It is my partner, it's Scott Reichel. What's up, buddy?
Doing pretty well. I'm in the middle of a massive sweating golf right now, but by the time this actually airs, it'll be, well past it. Actually, it's not a sweat. Tiger just laid up, so unless he hits a nice 90-yard chip-in birdie, I win.
Right.
So let's see what happens here. But overall, pretty good. Golf just turned very profitable for me, so hopefully horse racing stays the same.
Okay, well, that closes the No One Cares file, so thanks very much.
What is that, installment 47 or 45? I lost count.
For the 108th day in a row, we close up the No One Cares file. But you know what? Here's something we care about. We actually have a genuine bona fide horse racing expert. No pressure. He's part of the Racing Dudes, and we've had him on a couple times before. He's a great guy. We're going to talk a little ponies this weekend. He is the one, the only Curtis Kalleward. Curtis, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, gentlemen. Thanks for having me back on. This is the rubber match, right? The first time I was on, we didn't do so hot, and then we were on for Belmont Stakes, and we cashed pretty good, and I'm hoping we can get more of the ladder going here in this day.
Yeah, that's it should be fun, And we were originally going to talk about Maximum Security making his return appearance at. Where's the track where they at, Curtis?
Well, they're supposed to be at Del Mar, which is just a tick north of San Diego down here in California. Yeah, and then we had a bunch of jockeys all tested positive for the coronavirus. So 15 in total. There actually was a suspicion when a couple of the main jockeys in the opening weekend had to pull out suddenly because they tested positive, that on Tuesday of this current week, the track mandated that every single jockey and every person who works in the jockey, so all of the attendants and the cleaners and everybody had to get tested. 15 jockeys out of probably about 20, 25 of them tested positive. They're all asymptomatic. They all seem to be fine, but out of an abundance of caution, and honestly because there aren't enough jockeys left to ride all the horses, they shut everybody down for the week. So we're gonna postpone it and come back next weekend. And one more week and we get to see Maximum Security come back.
I think the most surprising part about that was that they weren't testing him to start with. Like, I just assumed that they had protocols in place where they were testing him, every other day that's crazy. And I guess you get in the jocks room, right? And it's pretty cramped in there, and it's not really hard to spread something that's airborne, I would assume, right?
Yeah, it's a tight quarters, and it's disappointing because when we were at Santa Anita all spring and summer, there weren't issues with it. The jockeys had to quarantine on site. They were living in the star celebrity trailers that they have on movie sets. They were living in those at the track, and everybody had to pass a test a couple of days before the races before they could even run. So, they went to Los Alamitos, which is in Orange County, and they really didn't do any testing there. And they think that that's the epicenter of where it all started as far as the West Coast jockeys go, because all but one of the jockeys who tested positive rode the same day. And there were a couple of guys from out of town who then, when they left, they brought it with them, and it's starting to spread a little bit. So a little scary here, but again, everybody seems to be asymptomatic. So let's just give them a week off, and hopefully we can come back kind of like what they're doing in some of the other major sports.
Right. Well, cool. And that's, we're looking forward to talking a little Maximum Security and your thoughts on whether he got jobbed and that was legit last year. Okay, real quick thumbnail because I had everything ready to go. Was that a good disqualification last year at the Kentucky Derby?
Yes, that was the correct call. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was. I was honestly surprised it took that long. I feel like the people behind the scenes knew what they had to call it, but they really didn't want the controversy. But they had no choice. He literally veered right into the other horse's path. I don't really know how you're not supposed to call that.
Be like calling pass interference on a Hail Mary in the Super Bowl or something.
It's like calling pass interference on a past the 1 yard line when the Rams guy decapitates you. Right?
Yeah, brutal. But all right, so let's instead of lamenting over what we don't have, because we certainly do enough of that on this show, let's be positive. Talk about what we do have. We're going to look at Monmouth Park going forward. Curtis' first race at Monmouth Park is a grade 3 stakes race mile and an eighth. And there's some interesting horses. Why don't you start us off and tell us what you got, and then Scott and I will we'll lob our worthless opinions in there and see what we can do. So, what do you got in this race number 10? Race number 10 there at Monmouth Park.
So unlike last week when I told you that, there was going to be, or last time I was on, I should say, for the Belmont, those 3 races I said could all be pretty heavy chalk with those, and they turned out to be, and I said bet accordingly. You're going to get a couple of good, interesting races here. The third one we're going to talk about is going to be, I think, really chalky, but these first 2, this is where you can really make some money if you get creative and get lucky. The Monmouth Cup, for example, the morning line favorite is Monongahela at 3-1. I don't want anything to do with this horse. And a big reason, we've touched on it a little bit before when I've been on, there were 2 trainers back in March, actually right before the pandemic started, Jason Service and Jorge Navarro, and those 2 guys were arrested by the FBI because there was this whole illegal drug tampering thing where they were shipping drugs across state lines, which is a federal offense. They didn't have the right to possess them, administer them, blah, blah, blah. Basically, these 2 guys were juicing the you-know-what out of their horses, including Jason Service, who trained maximum security, which is why it was going to be really fun to talk about that horse. But Monongahela is one of the several horses who got taken away from either Service or Navarro, in this case Service. And the big question and the big issue we've faced as bettors in horse racing is, how do you play these horses? Because if they get sent to a trainer that isn't known for juicing or isn't a reputable, or is not someone that you greatly suspect is cheating, can you expect them to run? It's like if Lance Armstrong suddenly stopped taking steroids, would he have still won the Tour de France? Like, how do you bet that moving forward? So Monongahela at 3-1, I don't want anything to do with him, because his first race after the drugs, more or less got out of his system after a couple of months, he ran terribly. And you could argue maybe he didn't like the wet surface, but he had 4 seconds from 7 starts on wet surfaces before. So all that said, I want nothing to do with this horse. So I think we can get a price. And I'm going to go to the inside. Global Campaign is the top choice here. This is a horse who last year as a 3-year-old was doing very well. He really seemed to thrive at the mile and an eighth distance. He won the Peter Pan Stakes. He hit the board in the Jim Dandy Stakes behind some really nice horses. He hasn't had such luck this year in 2020, but he also was going a 1-turn, 7 furlongs, and 1-turn mile at Churchill Downs. Now he stretches back out to go 2 full turns, going a mile and an eighth, something that he loves. He's also by a horse named Curlin, which if you've been following horse racing enough is one of the best sires and was one of the best runners in the early 2000s. And Curlin horses traditionally get better as they get older and as they go longer. And if I'm going to get 9-2 on this horse, man, you're going to see me pop a nice win bet on it, because I think this horse should be on every single ticket that you play. If you're doing exotics, like an exacta trifecta, if you're doing a pick 3, you've got to have Global Campaign everywhere on there.
So this is one of those rare horses. I mean, I don't know how rare it is, but normally it's it kind of separates the skill level when you see them when they stretch out at the longer distances. A lot of times they don't run as well. This is kind of the opposite, is what you're saying. This guy, the more you stretch him out, like you said, he's 2 for 2 as far as hitting the board at this distance. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the ones that I had looked at as well. Scott, do you want to start lobbing your terrible picks in here? You want me to go first?
If you want to, I don't know, age before beauty, I guess. No, up to you.
Yeah, sure, man. I'll do that. Curtis, there was actually 2 that I was looking at here, mm-hmm. And the first one was was Math Wizard, and this is a horse that has done pretty well going at this distance. He's hit the board twice in 5 turns in 5 tries. So tell me why that's a bad pick.
Well, he hasn't been working well recently. So going back to what I was talking about with Navarro and Service, there were other trainers when the FBI raids happened, and it was huge news in the sport. There were other trainers where we went, okay, if those guys got popped by the FBI, there's other trainers you think might be cheating. Let's pay attention to how they do for the next month or so. This trainer, Safi Joseph Jr., I'm not saying he cheated. Maybe he just had a string of bad luck, but his win percentage plummeted. Suddenly his horses couldn't run the right way around a track. So you can see that what happened with this horse. He did not do well in his return. A $55,000 handicap race, he should have beaten them very easily. That's not a horse that I want anything to do with. He did win the Pennsylvania Derby going a mile and an eighth, and that's probably a big reason why you're intrigued by him. But exactly. Look before and look after. There's a big blip, and there's a reason he was 31-1 in their race. And the horses that he beat in the Pennsylvania Derby, Mr. Money, should have won that race. He turned out to be a good horse. War of Will had won the Preakness, but this was at the tail end of War of Will running, I think, 10 straight races without a break. So he didn't have his best effort. I really think that he caught lightning in a bottle in that spot. You're going to get every bit of that 10-1. So if you disagree with me and you really think that, this is a good spot for him, it's his second start off of a layoff, which is always when you always project improvement from horses. So if you disagree and you do like him, you're going to get a really good price. I just don't trust anything coming out of that barn right now. And again, like I said, his workouts, if you look at the bottom of the past performances page there, his workouts don't tell me that he's doing very well. So I'm just, in this race, I don't think he's got it.
Yeah, and that's you're exactly right. You see that Pennsylvania Derby where it was 31-1. And that is exactly what caught my eye. He closed well in that one. So yeah, it's always I was just taking a look at him. I wasn't convinced because I wanted a little better price. I didn't think 10-1 with all these horses was going to be a great price on him. So
now, if you liked him, I will say, Scott, if you like him as underneath for an exacta, trifecta, superfecta, that's a great spot. I'm just specifically saying, as far as a win candidate, he's not going to be anywhere on my ticket.
Fair enough. Scott, what do you got?
So for me, I was looking at two horses in particular, and one of them was Global Campaign, but we already talked about that. The other one I was looking at was Ball Harbor, and that was probably where I was leaning the most. Simply put, I think it would be very hard to find a jockey that I like more than Mike Smith. And I simply just think that that this horse is either the best horse in the field or the second best horse in the field. I do agree, even though I like Chad Brown's horses typically, not really a big fan of the favorite here, especially with all the news that came out and everything that we already talked about. But for me, I think it's a two-horse race. It's either Global Campaign or Ball Harbor. And I got the slight lean to Mike Smith, but if Curtis wants to roast me on that pick, he's more than welcome to do so.
No, I like this pick. My only issue, well, two issues. One, he leaves Todd Pletcher's barn. Todd Pletcher is going to be probably announced as a Hall of Fame trainer in his first year of eligibility next year, and he's won the Kentucky Derby several times. Phenomenal trainer. Greg Sacco's not a bad trainer. There isn't too much of an issue with them moving the horse because Red Oak Stable, who owns and bred the horse, does have horses with Greg Sacco. So I'm not that worried about it. The big concern, he hasn't raced since December. Greg Sacco isn't known for having horses ready to fire really strong off the layoff. That being said, if you look at this horse's, the two times he's returned from a layoff, he got it the win in an optional claimer back in, 2018, off of a similar layoff. And then he got third in the Salvatore Mile in his last layoff. So he's got the ability to do it. He was second, beaten ahead, and that was a really just tremendous effort. I think probably the best effort he's ever had in his whole racing career. He lost it, but it was good. And that was with Mike Smith aboard, who you're talking about. The only concern, like I said, is the layoff. But if you're not that worried about it, 7-2 is a little short price for me, but he is a horse that's going to be on my tickets if I play a pick 3. So not going to roast you one bit on that one.
Yeah, I think realistically, if there wasn't as long of a layoff, he would be the favorite in this race by, I don't want to say a considerable amount, but I think he would easily be the favorite by, I don't know what he would close at. I'd assume maybe 2-1, maybe 3-1, give or take, something along those lines. So for that reason, I do agree the layoff isn't exactly ideal, but I think it's a good chance to potentially steal some value if you believe the layoff is not going to play much of a factor.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. The two other horses that I would say just take a look at if you were considering playing, exactas, trifectas, the 10-horse Bodie Express. If you remember, this is the horse who famously threw his jockey off in the Preakness Stakes. Sent him like a bronco, just threw him up in the air out of the gate, and then actually just ran the whole race without the jockey and looked like he was having a lot of fun.
Didn't he finish decently from what I remember?
Yeah, he ran really. I mean, granted, he's not carrying 120-pound jockey,
yeah.
but still, he ran really well, and he was still a maiden. This horse finished second in the Florida Derby to Maximum Security. That got him into the Kentucky Derby. He didn't run terribly. Then he went to the Preakness, and then they brought him back to the maiden level, and he broke his maiden. This horse is nuttier than squirrel turds. The things that this horse will do, he gets fractious in the gate. He likes to throw jockeys. He likes to just act up. If they can calm him down, this horse has a lot of talent. He's a classic example of a horse that I think if they would just geld him, just make that ultimate equipment change on him, it would do a world of good for him because it would calm him down with the hormones. He's got the ability to go as far as he can try and take them on the front end. And that always makes a horse dangerous, especially there isn't a lot of speed signed on here. So if you like Bodie Express, you just have to kind of hold your breath when the gates open because you don't know, is he going to go with a jockey or is he going to go without a jockey? So you kind of have to, take your chances with that one.
Okay.
Then,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say the other one is the 8 Just Whistle. This is a horse who, if you forgive him for the Suburban Stakes, which was 1.25 miles, which most horses can't go 1.25 miles, it doesn't matter how old they are. His last 2 races are really good. And if he was coming into this off of those last 2 efforts, both at 1 mile and 1/8, one on slop, one in fast dirt, this horse would be a lot shorter than 6-1. So if you forgive him for losing the Suburban and just not running because it was way too long for him, this is a good horse to pick up if you're looking for a price at 6-1.
Okay, I like that. All right, so speaking of talking me off a crappy horse, man, I kept waiting to say this one, and it's just my heart sank. It's Jovia, who had a nice run at 1.5 miles in the Belmont last year. Was the speed horse, led the entire way. Now they didn't have really fast splits, but he was he was obviously caught at the end, but he held up there and he held on for a 3rd place. And you talk about a horse that can go the distance. Now, it seems that his pedigree is to fade at the end, but for some reason in that race, he didn't really fade as much as you might have expected. So can we expect anything from him in this one, Curtis?
So in the Belmont, when they go 1.5 miles, if you're on the front end, just like I was talking about with the Suburban, when you go 1.25 miles, a lot of those horses can't do that, and so they just fall off the pace. You see it in the Kentucky Derby every year. The Belmont's kind of the same thing. He was on the front end. He fell off the pace a bit. Nobody passed him because they were already behind him. And you turn that corner, it's like if you're running a marathon and you're trying to catch that person in front of you and you're out of gas and they're out of gas, you're both going to kind of fade at the same time. So I wouldn't use him on top. But again, if you're looking for a horse underneath, especially if Bodie Express does something stupid, you could see Jovia, at least hit the board, probably bottom of your trifecta, superfectas here. And at 20-1, that's a good way to make money. There's also a theory that some people have in horse playing that if a trainer has 2 horses, why run 2 when one will do? The belief is that maybe they're both doing very well. So the fact that Greg Sacco is already going to have Bal Harbor in here, who Scott and I said that we liked, they put this other one in here at 20-1. Stranger things have happened.
Okay, all right. Well, that's not quite as dismal as my normal pick. So, so your official best pick on this one, Scott, is going to be the one horse is going to be Global Campaign.
I'm kind of in the middle. If I was going to play it, especially if I was going to do some type of pick 5 or something like that, or however you want to do it, I would probably join it with Campaign alongside with Bal Harbor. I got a little bit of a lean to Harbor because I do think that Campaign will close as the favorite because I think the layoff will scare some people off. So for value, for the most part, I'll go with Harbor. But I think if you're going to be looking for a potential exacta or try or something like that, I think having Campaign and Harbor is almost a must for me. So that's how I'm going to look at it. Because I feel like a lot of these horses are kind of wild cards, and you can't make the argument that they're very dangerous and they could have a great run. But I don't really trust any of these horses besides the top 2 here. And, not the top 2 because we already talked about the favorite who we don't trust. So out of those 2, I feel the most confident with them finishing well. So I'll go with them.
Okay, good. And Curtis, you're on the one horse pretty good at 9-2.
I am, yeah, but I agree with Scott about Bal Harbor being good. The layoff is what's going to scare me there. So Global Campaign is my top pick, but if you like Bal Harbor over him, I'm not going to fault you for it.
All right, good enough. Let's move on to the next race there, guys. So we're taking a look at the 11th race there at Monmouth Park, and this is going to be 1 mile and 3/8. It's the United Nations Stakes. Grade 1 should be some high quality horse racing here. Scotty, kick us off. What you got here?
So looking at this race, flattered you want my opinion first over Curtis's. So yeah, thanks.
Well, I just let you tear you down after you put your silly horses out there.
Yeah, something like that. For me, the first one that's going to jump off the page is Arklow. That's the first one that I noticed as just being a solid horse. I typically like horses on the rail. Maybe that's just a personal preference, but once again, I feel like consistency here. I like riding Mike Smith, and I feel like that's usually a safe way to spend your money. So I feel like that's a good start. So I'm looking at Arklow because I do think that that is a solid horse, and I think it has a good chance to run extremely well in this field. Other than that, though, I was tempted by Current, but I kind of just decided not to in the end. If I had to look anywhere else, I think it's a little interesting, though, that Curlin has multiple horses in this race, which I think is kind of a fascinating point to kind of look at. But if I had to really lean anywhere else, I don't know why. I'm a little bit attracted to Aquaphobia. Maybe it's just the name alone. But there's something about that horse I think has a shot to potentially place maybe show. So for that reason, yeah, I'd say Arklow is my favorite. And I got a little dark horse sprinkle on Aquaphobia.
All right, good enough. And Curtis, what are you thinking here on this one?
I'm taking Scott's dark horse as my top pick here. Now, granted, this is a race where you could go 5-6 deep. It'd be hard for you to, Scott, to pick a horse here for me to poo-poo too much here. This is pretty wide open, and it's a grade 1. This race isn't a Breeders' Cup prep race officially, but they've had a lot of Breeders' Cup champions come out of this race. So, you know, you've had English Channel won it twice. He won the Breeders' Cup Turf. Precious Passion won it twice. He won the Breeders' Cup Turf. World Approval did it. He won this race, and then a year later won the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile. So usually you get a lot of talented horses here. I'm not sure that you've got the Breeders' Cup Turf winner in this field, but there are some great horses, and I'll start with Aquaphobia. Mike Maker is amazingly talented at finding older horses and claiming them for a decent price, in this case $62,500. And then he actually turns them into monsters. So he claims the horse for $62,500, hadn't won in a really long time. The first thing he does, he puts him in his stakes and he wins. So Mike Maker is somebody that especially if I see that he's claimed a horse, I'm like, I got to play that horse. Joe Bravo in the saddle. His nickname's Jersey Joe Bravo because he's won the jockey title at Monmouth Park 14 times. He is really good at this track. So Mike Smith is good anywhere. Joe Bravo, man, you get him at Monmouth Park. This is where he goes. So you're getting the two of them to team up. And if you look at his last 4 races since Mike Maker claimed him, he hasn't had a bad race. The one time when he finished 4th, beaten almost 5 lengths, it's because the jockey lost the whip at the quarter pole. So he was running without, basically running without one shoe because he against all those other horses. And so the fact that he still ran well, came out of that, finished second, almost won. One thing I had trouble with this field is there are a lot of horses that don't necessarily like to win, and that even includes Arklow. This horse loves to find a way to get beat at the wire, and he drives me nuts because I always play him, and he never really can break through. The one time I didn't play him, he won the Turf Classic. It was grade 1 last fall. It really made me mad. But you can't ignore Brad Cox. He is a top trainer. What's really interesting is that this horse just ran on July 12th, and now he's showing up back here. Now, ran is kind of a loose term because he didn't actually run all that well, but the fact that Brad Cox is bringing one of his best horses ever back on such a short layoff and shipping from Kentucky to New Jersey has got to tell you this horse is okay. He's fine. He just didn't run for whatever reason. Maybe he didn't like Keeneland. Maybe it was a little muggy for him, whatever the reason is. So, and like Scott said, you're getting Mike Smith back aboard. You always want to play him because his nickname is Big Money Mike Smith. So you really got to, between those two, again, Scott and I are kind of in sync here. We're on two sides of the same seesaw here. So either one of those on top, can't fault you for it.
All right, very good. And Curtis, I'm taking a look here, and again, I know he hasn't been running at the level that this race is, but I'm taking a look at Muggs Maddock, who's basically won 4 of his last 6 races, and he's certainly got a decent price attached to him there as you're getting him at 8-1. Talk me off the ledge on this one.
No, this is a great pick. This is a really great pick. And at 8-1, this is considered, we call this the other horse. So Mike Maker has got Aquaphobia, and then he's also got this horse at a much better price. Remember what I talked about last race with Jason Service horses, what happens when they run after that? Look what this horse did in his first start. He won a stakes race. It was against Florida Breds, but still. He ran really well, and now you're getting him second off the layoff, and you're getting Paco Lopez aboard. Paco Lopez is a really dangerous rider, both in terms of good, meaning he's going to give you a good ride, and also he can be very dangerous on the course. But you can always trust that he's going to give his absolute best effort to put the horse in a place to win. So I don't have any issues with this. I was ended up going to probably go about 5 deep playing in a pick 3 here because I think there's a really good chance for a price. And like you said, Scott, these horses don't always like to win. This horse does like to win. And the fact that he won after being out of the Jason Service barn, this is a good pick for you.
All right, excellent. Wow, that is not at all what I expected to hear on that one. Curtis, you got any other sneaky picks on this one that we might be taking a look at for a card a little bit?
Standard deviation, the 2-horse, he's with Graham Motion, who is, in my opinion, one of the best turf trainers in America. He's also one of the absolute cleanest trainers. He hasn't had a single drug pop in over 20 years. So in this day and age, if I'm going to start supporting those guys a little bit more, I always try to do. A standard deviation is 2 for 2 on the turf at Monmouth Park. He started his career, he's supposed to be a big dirt horse that was, everybody thought, oh, this is the horse that could, really be a Kentucky Derby player. Didn't really seem to ever run well on the dirt. They put it on the turf, and he immediately turned into a new horse. He won his first start on the turf over this course, and then followed that up 2 races later. A little bit shorter, but he's by Curlin. He's out of an AP Indy mare, so there's plenty of distance pedigree. So I'm not worried about that. And like I said, Graham Motion really knows how to train a horse. You're getting him second off the layoff. He could be good. Watch out for the 9-horse. If you're playing multi-race bets, watch out for the 9 because there isn't much speed signed on. This horse only likes to be on the front end. And if he can get a little brave up front, he can take him gate to wire. He did that last time out in the Tiller, and you could expect improvement off his second start in 2020. So watch out for him. And at 6-1, he's definitely going to make my tickets because if nobody pushes him, I don't care how long the race is, they're not going to catch him.
They brought him over for Australia. Now, do you always, when they bring them on a long trip like that, do you always have to take kind of a second look at those horses because this, standard thinking would seem to be, well, if he wasn't good, if he didn't have a chance, they wouldn't be bringing him over.
Yes and no. It depends on who's owning it. Sometimes the owners just, they want to give up, or there's someone else who's interested in trying to buy the horse. With Australian horses, they tend to be a little bit better at distance as the distance goes longer. You see that with European horses too. They breed them a lot more often to be stayers, which is to go a longer distance, whereas in America, it's all about the speed. So it doesn't worry me that he's coming over. And actually, I'm sorry, you were asking if it was a positive. I think it is a positive here. Again, it took him a little while to get adjusted to the American style of racing, but his last 2 starts, if he can repeat either one of those efforts and nobody pushes him, it's going to be really hard to beat him.
All right, solid. Very, very good. Scott, you got anything else you're taking a look at here?
Not really. That was kind of the main 2 horses that I was looking at, and the fact that Curtis agreed with both makes me feel pretty good about myself. So I feel like I'm just going to quit while I'm ahead and move on to race 12.
Good. Yeah, I think it's excellent that because you're right, Curtis. Last time we were on, it was a little chalky, especially the Belmont, which try as we might, we were trying to figure out a way to not put the favorite at the top of the board, and yeah, that just didn't work out.
Well, I actually had a question that I wanted to ask Curtis. So I know we've talked about it before, but just for a brief reminder, I did notice that Michael Maker is going to be having multiple horses in this race.
Mm-hmm.
Is that concerning for some people at home who might be wondering why a trainer would be throwing out 2 of his horses at the same time, or does that just randomly happen?
A trainer. So that's a good question. For something like this, if you're newer and you have that question, look at the trainer's win percentage. If the trainer, just the top line there. So Mike Maker's a 19% winner. If he was 8% or 6%, or, you look at the 4-horse John Stevens, that trainer's 1 for 27. If he had 2 in here, he's throwing darts. He's just praying for something lucky to happen. In the case of Mike Maker, if he's putting 19%, in the winner's circle, and he does this often, that he's going to be good. So that means that he's literally giving himself, 2 shots to get in there, and he knows that he's got the good horses for it.
Oh, I know both of us like aquaphobia, so it doesn't really impact them. It's not going to deter either of us from making a wager on that horse. I was just curious if that potentially meant anything.
No, again, look at the win percentage for the trainer, and this is a case-by-case basis. If the trainer's got a high win percentage, it means that they're probably doing something smart. If they got a low percentage, they're probably just throwing darts.
And Curtis, just to help out our audience, what's a good percentage? What's a bad percentage? So in other words, you like 19. What are you looking for there?
I assume 100% is pretty good.
It's okay. Anything above Let's see. That's a good question, and it changes for people. But most of the time, 15% and up is good. You get to 17, 18%. Now this is also based on a larger sample size. If it's out of 10, this doesn't really mean anything. But once you get to 18, 19, 20, that's good. Anything higher than that is almost like you have to pay attention. Anything single digits, especially with a large sample size, that's when you start to really back off. Or if you see a lot of things that are 4%, 5%, that makes you concerned. If it's one thing that's a small percent, it's okay. But if you see a lot of low percentage, there's probably a reason for that.
So in other words, Mike Maker at 19%, he's 119 for 630. That's a pretty good sample size. So that certainly indicates that he is a very, very high quality trainer.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay. All right. Good enough. Anything else either one of you guys want to touch on before we move on to the big one?
No, I think I'm ready to move on to the big one.
Okay. All right, Curtis. Any closing thoughts on the 11 race?
No, just if you had a price horse other than probably the 4, which I talked about, if there are any horses there that you liked, feel free to use them, because this feels like a race where you're going to get a good price. So if you disagree, or if there's a horse we didn't talk about and you're like, I kind of like this horse, just play him. So
we can throw out Eve's Medal and how about O Dionysus?
Yeah, I don't really like that horse either. Eve's Medal is raced once and is a maiden. Why in earth are you in a Grade 1 $300,000 race with a 4% trainer?
Not good.
But that's superfecta though. I mean, come on.
Sure. put him fourth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And something, Curtis, real quick, how do you re-maiden? Isn't that like being revirginated?
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
Okay, well, you said like it was a maiden, and they broke their maiden. They won a race, and they had a couple bad races, and you said they put them back in the maiden. And how do you do that? I thought.
Oh, with Bodie Express.
Yeah.
He didn't win a race. He hadn't won. He just finished. He had enough points from finishing in the Florida Derby that he qualified for the Kentucky Derby. Okay. So he did. He went to those races without ever having won before, which is why nobody bet him to win.
Okay, I misunderstood. I think you said somebody had won, and then they had some disappointing performances, and they put them back to the maiden level.
Gotcha.
They won for the first time twice. Which is pretty difficult.
That's why I was confused. So I didn't. That's not a thing, right? Once you can never run again as a maiden once you win.
The only way that happens, and actually has happened this year a few times, is if the horse gets disqualified, usually for a drug positive. So there was a horse that actually broke his maiden, they disqualified him. He broke his maiden, they disqualified him, and then he broke his maiden. So he actually won 3 times.
Wow!
It only counts as 1, but
kind of a junkie, with what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so this the 12th race here. That is the kind of the feature race of the day. This is the one that I've actually heard of. It's a Grade 1. It's the Haskell, and I would assume we've got some high quality picks here. Curtis, get us started. Yeah, so as nice as it would have been to get prices in the United Nations, even the Monmouth Cup, you're not getting a price here. You understand that going in. This is like the Belmont Stakes. The last time I was on, this is a 2-horse race, and it comes down to the top 2 choices. You got Authentic at 4-5, who suffered his first career defeat last time out to the horse who's 2nd or 3rd in everybody's Kentucky Derby rankings. And then you've got Dr. Post, who finished 2nd in the Belmont Stakes, to the horse who's atop everybody's Kentucky Derby rankings. So beyond this, you've got a lot of just kind of filler horses where you're going to be trying to guess who can finish 2nd, who can finish 3rd, play an exacta trifecta. I'm going to go with Dr. Post on top slightly. And the reason is because I know what Authentic is. I've seen every one of his races. I know what I'm going to get from him. Dr. Post is still improving. He only started 3 times this year, which I know is the same for Authentic, but his starts have come a lot more recently. And the effort he put in the Belmont going 1 1/8 showed me this horse can really handle the distance. And that was a big test. Mind you, he broke his maiden in March. They sent him right to a stakes race. It was a small stakes race, but they sent him right to a stakes race. And he beat horses that have already won races before. And then he goes to the Belmont and beats a lot of nice horses. So I'm going to go with him on top. You can also trust Todd Pletcher. He's won this race 3 different times. He's getting Jersey Joe Bravo in the saddle because Irad Ortiz Jr. is going to be staying in New York. So you got a lot of potential here. The problem is he's facing a Bob Baffert horse, and Bob Baffert's won this a record 8 times. And Bob Baffert doesn't ship horses to the East Coast for Grade 1 races unless he thinks they're going to win. So
It hurts to have to say you got to eat chalk here, especially if you're playing a pick 3, pick 4, pick 5. But I would use these two horses. Where it gets interesting is where you try and figure out who's going to finish second, third, and fourth behind them.
All right, very good. Scott, your thoughts on this one?
Well, Curtis and I have been on the exact same page the entire show, and that's not really going to change at this point. First glance, Bob Baffert. No, enough said. You throw Mike Smith on there also. That's a pretty good 1-2 combo there. Authentic is a very solid horse. Dr. Post is also solid. Even though I'm from New York, I feel like a trader. I have no interest in New York traffic. I'm going to have to skip that horse entirely. Not really a fan of that horse. I think if you're looking for a potential long shot to maybe complete a try or a super, maybe Fame to Famous if you really wanted to go nuts with it. But in reality, my play here would just be an exacta box between Authentic and Dr. Post. I feel like they're just so far ahead of every other horse, it's not really even worth talking about potential long shots. I think either Authentic or Post are going to win, and either Authentic or Post are going to come in second. So based on that, my play is an exacta box between the 1 and the 2.
So can I correct you on something? The issue with how you're betting that, I understand what you're saying. You think those are the two best horses. You're not going to make any money.
Oh, correct.
Exacta boxing them.
Yeah.
So I would, if that was your opinion, if you really thought no one else is going to finish in the top 2, that's fair.
Then you do the try with all the horses.
Well, I would say pick one and then the other. You would have to do it straight. If you box them up, if Dr. Post wins, even if Dr. Post wins as the second choice, you're going to get back, maybe 50-cent profit on the dollar because they're so far ahead of them. So in my case, I like Dr. Post also. So I would do him to win, Authentic second, and leave it. If you liked Authentic more, obviously flip them. It's just the way that the boxing works is you're doubling your cost and your profit.
I'm aware it's not really worth that much money. It's just a matter of I really don't think there's real hope for any of the Cinderellas here. I feel like it's pretty clear it's going to be between the 1 and the 2. Are we in agreement on that?
Scott, what about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I'm trying to talk myself into New York traffic as having any shot at this, and I just can't. I'm on the 1 and the 2 as well. Curtis, let me ask you: is Scott kind of mentioned it? Would there be any value in taking those top 2 horses at the top and then wheeling everything else as far as the trifecta goes?
You can try and do that. I don't like New York traffic to win, but he's a very consistent horse, and so even though he is coming out of a trainer that we've just talked about 2 races ago, I think he's got a really good shot to hit second or third here. So what I would do, if you wanted to play Dr. Post and Authentic both to win, play those 2 to win, and then do those 2 with New York traffic for second. And then for your trifectas, man, just go nuts. I mean, you could do Fame to Famous. Ancient Warrior is a horse who, when he broke his maiden on debut, people thought this was going to be a huge Kentucky Derby contender. And then he never has tried 2 turns. He keeps sprinting, and he keeps not doing well sprinting. So, maybe him stretching out. He's by the same sire, Constitution, as Tiz the Law, who is your Kentucky Derby favorite. So you've got a lot of potential for him to handle 2 turns. And then I also, this is going to sound crazy, I like Jesus's team. I think it's pronounced Jesus's team, the 3 horse, but I just like to say Jesus's team instead. Man, since he came to Jose D'Angelo's barn, I know he hasn't faced anything very talented, but he's run really well his last few races. And so, 15-1, you could see him finish third or and get a little crazy here at the try. So, but like you were saying, Scott, go with the 2 on top. Get nuts underneath, wheel whatever you can do. Just to hope for the longest shot on the board to get in there for you.
Yeah, it's and I do like I did take a look at Jesus's team as well. He hit the board with a nice second place finish last time. He didn't fade at all, going off as a 12-1 shot. So
And Sole Volante, when he won that race, he went to the Belmont Stakes a week later. He didn't run very well. The idea was that maybe it's because it was too quick of a turnaround for him. But Sole Volante is a very highly touted Kentucky Derby prospect going into that race. And he beat Ete Indian, who doesn't even show up on your page. Ete Indian was in the race and was at that time a Kentucky Derby top prospect too. So there was a lot of talent at the time. Time will tell if it shows up or anything. But, I mean, I think you could do a lot worse than put him third.
Okay. Is there any of these horses that with a great performance could make the field of the Kentucky Derby? Is there still some? Are there still Are there still some horses vying for position or maybe an opportunity there?
The way the points are being given out for this race, you would have to finish second to qualify for the Kentucky Derby if you don't already have points. And the only ones that do have points right now are Dr. Post, Authentic, and New York Traffic, and they already have enough to get in. So I don't see, unless there's something crazy happens and it's a complete long shot that wins or gets second, none of these horses will make it. If Dr. Post or Authentic, if either one of them loses this race, this whole field is just bad. Like, I know it's a grade one for $1 million. I will not want to touch any of these horses in their next starts if either Dr. Post or Authentic loses, because that tells me this is just a bad field.
Okay. All right. Very good. Scott, any final thoughts here on any of the races?
For me, I kind of wish the main race had more than 7 horses with 2 huge favorites, but you can't always get what you want in that situation. So, yeah, is what it is. I mentioned Fame to Famous because screw it. I feel like you're kind of just throwing darts for third place. So why not go for the 30-1 shot right now on the opener? But yeah, for the most part, looking forward to some quality races, and hopefully Monmouth delivers.
Outstanding. Curtis, what's your of all these 3 races? Give our audience your absolute best play.
Okay. Well, the best play is not going to be. It's not going to be very profitable, and I really feel strongly about the exacta play where you put Dr. Post and Authentic on top, and then put them in second with New York Traffic. I think, again, this goes back to what we talked about last time you had me on with the Belmont, where I said Gamine is going to be a huge. You got to hammer her, and she won. Almost set a track record. And then I said, play it, 'tis the law. You had to bet a lot to win, but it worked, and that's kind of the theme with these 3-year-olds this year. I think that's what you're going to have to do. If you want to do a $20 exacta where you go, maybe if you have $20 you want to spend, you do $10 with 1-2 on top and then 1-2-7 in second place. So that's slightly more than $20, but you get my point.
So you're saying you play 1-2 and then you play the 1 on top and kind of put the 2 and the 7 there, either one to win second?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. When is the Kentucky Derby, Curtis?
September 5th. It's the first Saturday in September, which I think is the 5th.
Okay. All right.
So this will be most likely the last race for Authentic, Dr. Post, New York Traffic before the Kentucky Derby.
All right. And is there any way, do they ever hold them back, or does that factor in at all? They let them run wide open in this one? That they're not holding you.
It is, yeah. They'll let them roll because it's $1 million purse, first of all. So you've got $600,000 goes to the winner. So you don't want to hold back from that. And then also this race is a Breeders' Cup qualifier for the Classic. So whoever wins this gets an all expenses paid berth to the Breeders' Cup Classic, which is going to save you $60,000-$70,000. So not only are you getting $600,000 in the bank, you're saving longer down, and you're guaranteed a spot in the Breeders' Cup. So with it being a month and a half out from the Kentucky Derby, let them fly, baby.
Okay. All right. Very good. Curtis, thanks for joining us, man. It is always a fun to have one of the most knowledgeable horse guys on the show. And I know I learned a lot every time. I'm sure Scott does too. And yeah, we really appreciate you being here.
Well, thanks. That's very high praise. I'm very undeserving of, but I appreciate that. It's always a lot of fun coming on, and I always love talking horses. So if there's any of your listeners or watchers are interested, on Twitter, it's just my name @Curtis Kalleward. And if you're interested in playing, there are 14 races at Monmouth Park on the whole day. We picked the 3 that were best, but 14 of them. If you want to just go nuts and play all over the place, at racingdudes.com, we have an inside track wagering guide that's available for sale right now. And we have the picks and selections, all the best bets for you for every single race there. So I think it's either $30 or $40. I'm not sure, but with one race, especially earlier in the card, you make all that money back and more. So if you're interested in playing, go check it out.
Very good. And I didn't plug you up top. I'll plug you here. We do the Magic Mike podcast every week. And there's actually 2 of you. You're Magic, right?
Yes, sir. Yep, I'm Magic. My partner's that's my nickname, and then my co-host is named Mike, so it fits perfectly. We do 2 podcasts a week, and we cover on Thursdays we do a late pick 4 sequence. This week we did Saratoga, and then on Mondays we come back and talk about all the things that we got right and wrong and betting angles that we're looking at playing forward. So it's a good educational experience. We have a lot of people that really reach out and appreciate that part. And we also started doing all of it live streaming while we record. So it's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, it's on Twitter. The minute we start recording and going live, you can jump in and we answer questions and everything and try to make it interactive. And you can also see how the sausage is made because we make a lot of mistakes. I'm impressed that this is the third time on, and I've been very clean all 3 times that I've been on your show, because that's not my experience on my own show.
Nice. Well, it's good you can save it for us, man. We
Exactly. This one I care about. The other one,
Absolutely. Man, good luck on Saturday, and good luck going forward with everything. And we'll love to have you back on. Definitely have you back on before the Kentucky Derby, and then hopefully have you on doing a Derby show.
Absolutely.
At the very least. So appreciate it. Good luck going forward. Good luck this weekend.
Perfect. Good luck, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on. I'll see you soon.
All right, absolutely, Scott. Thanks as always for joining us. And there's a man right there with a fair amount of horse knowledge, just growing up on the East Coast and hitting the tracks every once in a while. I know, Scott, you've got some horse knowledge as well. So thanks very much for sharing with all our audience.
Yep, it's always fun talking about horses. I know we don't talk about it that often on the show. I don't know if you count extensive horse knowledge as going to the Belmont 3 times and going to the Aqueduct once, but that counts, I guess. And I went to Laurel Park once, so spreading it out a little bit. But for the most part, I don't think I'm a horse expert by any means, but I recognize the importance of a Bob Baffert horse, so I'm not completely clueless.
I used to my horse racing experiences when I was working in the straight world, a corporate job. I used to arrange bus trips for my office to go up to Exarban in Omaha, Nebraska, which doesn't even exist anymore. It's now a shopping mall, and but that was always a lot of fun because, of course, there's no horse racing in Missouri, no horse racing. That was the closest really gambling to us, and that was a lot of fun. But we saw a lot of good jocks run there. We actually saw like Dale Bays run. We saw Mike Smith run there a lot, and so it was kind of interesting. But I always defer to the experts, because I was always a guy that had a lot of fun but never hit a lot of winners. So appreciate you guys, and we've given you a lot of food for thought, everybody, and we would love to know what you're playing. So whatever you played, any horses this weekend, you got any thoughts on what we said today? As always, drop us a comment in the comment section. And we'll engage. We'll love to see what you're playing as far as these races. If you think we're crazy, certainly put it out there. And tomorrow we're going to be talking racing again, a little faster, as Scott and I will be joined by Willie Mormon to talk a little bit of the NASCAR race at Bristol. So make sure you tune in for that. And as always, don't forget to check out winnersandwhiners.com for all the great content over there on a lot of different sports that we're doing, and we're going to be doing more. We got baseball coming in a week, so it's something we haven't been able to say for about 3 months, but it's a good time in sports right now, and we're looking forward to everything going forward. So everybody hang in there, and we'll have a lot more content for you as that goes on. So for myself, for Scott Reichel, for Curtis Kalleward, we appreciate everybody stopping by and joining us here today. Good luck on all your plays today. Good luck on all your plays this weekend. Congratulations. You made it through another week, guys. It's Friday. Go out there and celebrate and have some fun. And we'll talk to you tomorrow, all right? Everybody take care. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.